Welcome to Copilot Podcasts. Most people think the story of humanity begins with a mistake, a garden, a fruit, a fall. But what if that's actually the middle of the story, not the beginning? What if before any of that, there was a blueprint, detailed, intentional, and built for something far greater than most of us have ever been told? Today, we're going deep into God's original plan for humanity. We're going to unpack what it actually means to be made in the image of God, why the dominion mandate is nothing like what you probably think it is, and how a series of ancient covenants reveal a plan that never stopped moving forward, even after everything went sideways. My co-host today has been sitting with these texts and these ideas for a long time, and I want to get right into it.
So, let me put this to you directly. When we talk about God's original plan for humanity, where does that story actually start?
It starts at the very beginning, and I mean that literally. Genesis 1:1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." And according to Bible Hub's analysis of this passage, that's not just a poetic opener, it's a foundational claim. Everything that exists came into being through the purposeful design of an eternal creator. Not by accident, not randomly, by intention.
So the intentionality is baked in from the very first sentence.
Exactly. And then when you get to Genesis 1:26 and 27, something shifts. God says, "Let us make man in our image according to our likeness." That phrase, "in our image," is unlike anything said about the rest of creation. The sun, the sea, the animals, none of them get that designation. Only humanity.
And that phrase has a name, right? There's a theological term for it.
Yeah, imago Dei, Latin for image of God. And the Bible Hub topical encyclopedia is really clear that this isn't about physical resemblance. It's about something much deeper: rationality, morality, creativity, and the capacity for relationships. Those aren't just nice human traits. According to that analysis, they are direct reflections of God's own character, built into us from the start.
That's a significant claim, because if that's true, it means every human being, regardless of anything else, carries something of the divine in them.
That's exactly the implication. And it's not just a spiritual idea, it has real ethical weight. The Imago Dei, as the Bible Hub analysis puts it, establishes a framework for understanding human identity and purpose, as well as the ethical treatment of others. You can't dehumanize someone who bears the image of God without contradicting the very foundation of creation.
Okay, so we've got this identity piece, humans made in God's image, but what were they actually supposed to do? Like, what was the job?
So this is where it gets really interesting. Genesis 1:28 gives what's often called the dominion mandate. Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air and every living thing. And most people hear dominion and subdue and think control, exploitation, ownership.
Yeah, that's definitely the reading that gets a lot of pushback today.
Right. But the Theology of Work Project's analysis of Genesis 1 and 2 pushes back on that hard. They argue that the dominion mandate is actually a call to creative partnership with God, growing, innovating, developing creation in ways that provide abundantly for all people. The original design, they say, was abundance, not scarcity.
Wait, abundance, not scarce.
Project makes this really striking contrast. They point out that the principle of scarcity, the idea that there's never enough to go around, is actually a post-Eden economic reality. But in the original design, God perfectly provisioned the world for humans to thrive. The Garden of Eden was described as a rich, fertile place where humanity was intended to prosper in every sense. The word blessed in Genesis 1:28, God blessed them, is a central feature of the whole biblical story.
So the default setting for humanity wasn't struggle, it was flourishing.
That's the argument. And Genesis 2:15 reinforces it. God placed Adam in the garden to till it and keep it. That's stewardship language, responsible care, not extraction. The divine narrative's analysis describes the Garden of Eden as a microcosm of an ideal world, abundant with resources, free from suffering, where humanity could thrive in harmony with nature and the Creator.
And there's also this relational dimension to it, right? It wasn't just about managing creation, it was about being in relationship with God.
Absolutely.
Rev. Samuel Aramoro, in his teaching on God's original intention for man, frames it this way. God's original intention was rooted in three things: purpose, authority, and intimacy. The intimacy piece is crucial. Humanity wasn't just created to do a job. It was created to be in fellowship with God. That's a fundamentally different starting point than most people operate from. Purpose, authority, intimacy. That's a powerful triad. And it makes me think, when people today are wrestling with questions like, why am I here? Or what's my identity? They're actually reaching back towards something that was built into the original design.
That's a really important connection. Rev. Arimoro actually says exactly that. Many people today live below their original design, unaware of the authority, creativity, and fellowship God intended for them. And understanding that original intention, he argues, restores identity, confidence, and direction.
Okay, so we've established the original design, imago Dei, stewardship, abundance, intimacy with God, but then something breaks. And I want to talk about that because I think the way most people understand the fall actually misses something important.
Yeah, this is where it gets nuanced. Genesis 3 records Adam and Eve's choice to disobey God, and the consequences are real and immediate. Bible Hub's analysis quotes Genesis 3:17, "Cursed is the ground because of you," and describes it as a broken relationship between humanity and the Creator. Sin introduced a rupture, not just between humans and God, but between humans and the rest of creation. Work became toilsome. The ground resisted.
So the fall didn't just affect the spiritual dimension, it affected the physical world, the relational world, the whole ecosystem of what God had set up.
Exactly. And the Bible Hub topical analysis on humanity's place in creation makes this point clearly. The fall profoundly affected humanity's place in creation. But here's what most people miss. The mandate to steward creation didn't disappear, it remained. It's just now carried out in a fallen world.
So the calling didn't get revoked, the conditions just got harder.
Right. And even more striking, in the very same chapter where the fall happens, God embeds a promise. Genesis 3:15 says, "He will crush your head and you will strike his heel." Bible Hub calls this the first promise of redemption, a foundational prophecy that foreshadows the eventual defeat of evil through a long-awaited Redeemer. The plan didn't end at the fall, it pivoted.
That's a really different way to read that moment. Most people see Genesis 3 as the end of something, but you're saying it's actually the beginning of the next chapter of the same plan.
That's exactly how the divine narrative's analysis frames it. The biblical narrative is structured around key elements: creation, covenant, redemption, restoration. And each of those elements builds on the one before it. The fall doesn't derail the plan, it becomes the context in which the plan unfolds.
And that's where the covenants come in.
Exactly. So after the fall, God begins revealing his plan step by step through what the Bible calls covenants. And these aren't just agreements. Bible Hub describes them as solemn commitments that bind God and humanity in a mutual relationship. They're not contracts with escape clauses, they're binding promises.
Walk me through the key ones.
So the first major one after the fall is the Noahic covenant in Genesis 9. God makes a universal promise never again to destroy all life with a flood, and the sign is the rainbow. What's fascinating is that Bible Hub notes the flood narrative has parallels in many ancient cultures worldwide. It's not just a biblical story, it echoes across human history.
That's actually something I didn't know, that the flood story shows up across so many different ancient cultures. That's a remarkable piece of shared human memory. It really is. And then you get the Abrahamic covenant, Genesis 12, 15, and 17. God chooses Abraham and makes this sweeping promise: all the families of the earth will be blessed through him. That's Genesis 12:3. And the divine narratives analysis points out that this introduces the idea of a chosen people through whom divine blessings would flow to all nations. It's not exclusive, it's expansive. So the covenant with Abraham wasn't just about one people group. It was always meant to ripple outward to everyone. That's the theological argument. And each covenant adds layers. The divine narratives team describes it as God revealing his plan step by step, not all at once, but progressively, through history. Prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah then come along and reinforce this, conveying messages of both judgment and hope, reminding people of their covenantal obligations while pointing toward a future restoration.
So there's this through line from creation, through the fall, through the covenants, through the prophets, all pointing towards something. A restoration of what was originally intended. That's the arc. And Romans 8, 19-21 captures it beautifully. It speaks of creation's eager expectation for the revealing of the sons of God. The Bible Hub analysis notes that the redemption of humanity is intrinsically linked to the renewal of creation. It's not just about saving souls, it's about restoring the whole original design.
Now, I want to push on something here, because there's a real tension in all of this. If God had this perfect plan, this blueprint for abundance and intimacy and stewardship, and he gave humans free will, wasn't that a risk? Like, wasn't the fall almost inevitable?
That's one of the oldest questions in theology, and it's genuinely hard. A paper published in the journal Theology and Science by Michael DeVito and Tyler Dalton McNabb from the University of Birmingham actually wrestles with exactly this: the tension between divine foreknowledge and human free will. Their argument is that a theist can rationally affirm both, that God knows all things and that humans genuinely have the freedom to choose, even though those two ideas seem to contradict each other.
So they're not trying to resolve the paradox, they're saying you can hold both things as true at the same time.
Right, they apply what they call the rational affirmation of paradox model.
And the deeper point, which connects to our conversation, is that free will itself is a divine gift. A paper by Douglas Uvan on divine warning and human free will makes this argument: the gift of free will places the responsibility for humanity's future in human hands. God intervenes, offers guidance, but the choice is ours. And that actually makes the relationship more meaningful, doesn't it? If there's no real choice, there's no real love, there's no real fellowship.
That's the theological logic. You can't have genuine intimacy without genuine freedom. And that's why the original design included the possibility of disobedience, not because God wanted the fall, but because real relationship requires real choice.
That reframes the whole thing. The risk wasn't a design flaw, it was a design feature, because without it, the intimacy God intended wouldn't have been real.
Exactly. And this is where the New Testament becomes important to the arc. The divine narratives analysis notes that the New Testament links creation to Jesus, portraying him as a central figure in both creation and redemption. The original design and the redemptive plan aren't two separate stories. They're one continuous story.
I want to bring in something that I think is really relevant here, and it's actually from a document released just this year. The Vatican's International Theological Commission put out a document in 2026 called Quo Vadis Humanitas, which translates to Where Are You Going, Humanity? And it's wrestling with Christian anthropology in the face of transhumanism and posthumanism.
That's a fascinating document to bring in here, because the question, where are you going, humanity, is really the flip side of where did you come from? And if you don't know the original design, you can't answer the destination question with any clarity.
Right. And the document actually addresses things like transhumanism, the idea of technologically enhancing or even transcending human nature. And it frames the human person as having a unique position in the cosmos. That's a direct echo of the Imago Dei conversation we've been having.
It is. And the Vatican document's conclusion is striking. It calls the goal of human existence divinization as true humanization, meaning becoming more fully what God intended you to be is not about escaping your humanity, it's about fulfilling it. That's a very different vision than what transhumanism offers.
So, the original design isn't something we've outgrown or need to upgrade, it's something we're still trying to return to.
That's the argument, and it's consistent across the sources we've been looking at. Whether it's the Theology of Work project, talking about abundance and creative partnership, or Rev Arimoro talking about purpose, authority, and intimacy, or the Vatican document talking about the integral vocation of the human being, they're all pointing at the same original blueprint.
Let me ask you something that I think a lot of people sitting with this topic would wonder. If the original design was this good, this intentional, this abundant, why does it feel so far away for so many people?
That's the honest question. And Rev Arimoro addresses it directly. He says many people today live below their original design, unaware of the authority, creativity, and fellowship God intended for them. The distortion happened through disobedience, but the design itself wasn't destroyed, it was obscured.
Obscured. That's a careful word. Not erased, obscured.
Right. And the Imago Dei, the image of God in humanity, is described in the sources as something that remains even after the fall. It's damaged, distorted by sin, but not eliminated. Psalm 8, 4-5, which Rev Arimoro cites, asks, "What is man that you are mindful of him?" and then affirms that God has crowned humanity with glory and honor. That dignity persists.
So the question isn't whether the design is still there. The question is whether we're living in alignment with it.
That's exactly it. And the Yuvan paper on divine warning and human free will frames it this way. The biblical call is to choose life. The decisions made by individuals and communities reflect the same biblical call that has always been there. The original design is still the standard. We're just navigating a fallen world while trying to reach back toward it.
And the covenants are part of that reaching back, God continually reestablishing the connection, restating the intention.
Exactly. Each covenant is God saying, the plan is still on. I haven't abandoned it. The Noahic covenant says, I won't destroy what I made. The Abrahamic covenant says, I'm going to bless all nations through this. The prophets say, restoration is coming. And the New Testament says it arrived in the person of Jesus. It's one continuous movement.
I want to go back to something you said earlier about the creation account having two distinct chapters, Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. Because the biblical chronology analysis by Christine Blanchard makes a point that I think is worth sitting with. The first account emphasizes God's power and authority. The second focuses on humanity's unique relationship with God and the importance of companionship.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction. Genesis 1 gives you the cosmic view, the 6 days, the ordering of creation, the declaration that it's good. Genesis 2 zooms in, it's intimate. God forms Adam from the dust, breathes into his nostrils, places him in the garden, and then God says, "It is not good for man to be alone." That's the first thing in all of creation that God calls not good.
Which tells you something profound about what God values. Relationship, community, not just function.
Right. And the divine narratives analysis describes the formation of Eve from Adam's rib as symbolizing an intimate and complementary relationship, a divine intention for human relationships to be marked by unity and mutual support. That's built into the original design. Companionship isn't an afterthought, it's foundational.
So the original design includes, at its core, the need for human beings to be in relationship with each other, not just with God.
That's the picture. And the Vatican document actually picks this up in its discussion of intersubjectivity, the sense of belonging and relationship. It frames the human person as fundamentally relational. You can't fully be what you were designed to be in isolation.
That's a countercultural idea in an age where individualism is basically the default setting.
It really is. And it connects back to the Imago Dei, because God himself, in the Christian understanding, is relational. The phrase, "let us make man" in Genesis 1:26, that plural, has been interpreted as pointing to the relational nature of God. And if we're made in that image, then our relational capacity isn't just a nice feature, it's a core part of what we are.
Okay. So, when you step back from everything we've covered, the Imago Dei, the Dominion Mandate, the fall, the covenants, the relational design, what's the through line? What's the one thing that ties all of it together?
I think the through line is intentionality. Every element of the original design, the image of God, the stewardship mandate, the abundance of the garden, the companionship, the covenants, all of it points to a creator who was deliberate. This wasn't a random act. It was a crafted environment for a specific kind of being, designed for a specific kind of life.
And the fall didn't erase that intentionality. It complicated it.
Exactly. And what's remarkable is that even in the complication, the original intention keeps reasserting itself. Through Noah, through Abraham, through the prophets, through the New Testament, the plan keeps moving. The divine narratives analysis puts it this way: history is moving toward a divinely orchestrated goal. The original design is also the final destination.
Here's what this really comes down to, I think. We started by saying most people think the story of humanity begins with a mistake. But what we've actually traced today is that the story begins with a mandate, a calling to bear the image of God, to steward creation with wisdom, to live in abundance and fellowship, and to be in genuine relationship with the Creator and with each other.
And that mandate never got cancelled. The conditions changed. The world got harder. But the calling to reflect God's character, to exercise responsible dominion, to live in intimacy with God, that's still the design. Rev Aramoro's framing stays with me. Living according to God's design allows man to thrive spiritually, materially, and socially. That's not a small claim.
It's not. And I think the practical implication for anyone sitting with this is your identity isn't defined by the fall, it's defined by the design. The brokenness is real, but it's not the foundation. The foundation is Imago Dei.
And the covenants are the evidence that God never stopped working to restore access to that foundation. Each one is a recommitment, a restatement of the original intention. The rainbow after the flood, the promise to Abraham, the prophets pointing forward. It's all one long act of faithfulness to the original design.
And the Vatican's question, Quo vadis humanitas? Where are you going, humanity, can only be answered well if you know where you came from. And where you came from, according to everything we've looked at today, is a place of purpose, authority, and intimacy.
That's the anchor. And I think that's what makes this conversation worth having, not just as a theological exercise, but as a practical one. Because if you understand the original design, you start to see your own life differently. Your capacity to create, to reason, to love, to build, those aren't accidents. They're echoes of the image you were made in.
Echoes of the image you were made in. That's a line worth sitting with. And here's the thing. The story didn't start with a mistake. It started with a mandate. And if the sources we've looked at today are right, that mandate is still in effect. The question is whether we're living like it is.
That's the question that doesn't go away. And I think that's exactly where this conversation should land. Not with a neat resolution, but with that open question sitting in front of you. Are you living in alignment with the design you were made for?
Thanks for being here for this one. And thank you for listening to Copilot Podcasts. We started today by asking whether the story of humanity begins with a mistake. And what we found is that it begins with something far more powerful than that. It begins with God saying, "Let us make man in our image." Everything else flows from there.